Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning! Isn't this air just lovely?
Why, yes, it is so clear and fresh.
It is, isn't it? Look outside, how the birds are chirping.
The wind is gently caressing the plants. Oh, it feels as if the leaves were directly giving us air to breathe in.
Oxygen sure is an amazing thing.
Preposterous, sir. Heresy.
Unfortunately, I am not lying this time, old chap. Janigen House had indeed said that.
But they're living things. Shouldn't they need oxygen?
He's right. Why, even sea creatures need oxygen for their survival.
Apparently, no. In fact, it is their byproduct.
Truly fascinating.
So, if they need carbon dioxide, then that must mean we need to increase our smoke production from the factories. We'll develop better as a systemized community that way, as well as self-sustaining.
Okay, Boomer! Whatever you say, Boomer! Okay, Boomer!
The carbon dioxide and oxygen cycle on Earth are effectively integrated to each other as one holistic cycle, a cycle that the life of people, plants, and animals on Earth depend upon. A good example being photosynthesis and respiration. Plants provide oxygen that are taken or inhaled by aerobic living entities for their survival, while the animals themselves provide the carbon dioxide that plants require to photosynthesize. This robust cycle is something present in all the spheres of the Earth, and such as is the most second abundant atmospheric gas, sitting at 20.9%, though one surprising fact would be that the atmospheric oxygen is actually a tiny fraction of all Earth's oxygen content. Oxygen is crucial to the atmosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, and the hydrosphere. In the biosphere, oxygen serves as a material for biomolecule production like protein. Atmospheric oxygen gets inhaled by humans and other animals, which are used for their cellular respiration, a series of metabolic processes, and exhaled as carbon dioxide. Atmospheric carbon dioxide is then absorbed by plants to be used for their photosynthesis, of which along the metabolic processes, oxygen is released through photolysis of oxygen being molecules.
There is also oxygen within the lithosphere, of which they bury biomass or fixed to minerals like oxides and silicates. Minerals could undergo weathering, releasing oxygen to the atmosphere. Then, there is the oxygen in water, of which they are a dissolved gas. When there is too much of its concentration, eutrophication occurs, damaging underwater wildlife.
Air pollution is defined as the contamination or chemical alteration to air found in the atmosphere. It has been a major issue that requires the initiation and cooperation of people if we're to reduce the effects created from this matter. We could eventually see the depletion of our ozone layer as well as increased effects from global warming. The burning of fossil fuels such as coal and natural gas in factories is arguably the biggest contributor to air pollution. The gases that are released due to this are carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and other greenhouse gases. This is generally found in industrial processes of the energy industry. The agriculture industry is also another industrial process that contributes to air pollution, more specifically livestock rearing. In the rearing of livestock, not only do farms produce food, but the waste of various animals can emit various harmful gases such as nitrous oxide and hydrogen sulfide, which are known to be toxic gases that can greatly influence and worsen the state of the atmosphere.
In addition to the impacts on humans and livestock, air pollution has a variety of environmental consequences. Erase the acid rain. It contains high amounts of nitric and sulfuric acids produced by the combustion of fossil fuels, bioxides, and sulfur oxides released into the air. The rain that people must find its beauty is rather creating damages to the trees, acidifies soil and water bodies, which makes aquatic life eliminated from our natural resources. Our ozone is exhausted by the disposal by humans of compounds such as chlorofluorocarbons and halons used primarily as coolants, foaming agents, pesticides, and fire extinguishers. The stratosphere ozone layer forms a protective layer representing the destructive ultraviolet radiation that would cause a climate change. The consequences on the market of outdoor air pollution, which include the impact in terms of industrial uses such as the labor force, health expenses, and agricultural crop products. Pollution consequences produce severe losses on the country's tourism industry, commercial fishing, and recreational businesses that depend on natural resources, wherein sources of attraction that people must enjoy and benefit are being removed to them because it can damage buildings and other structures.
The correlation between anthropogenic pollution and genetic adaptation is a topic of the two subjects that are often overlooked in favor of more apparent cause and effect relationships.
However, epigenetics and a polluted environment have more in common than many may think, further compounding the dangers of pollution, not only to the environment, but also to those who inhabit it, including humans. Hey Justin, what happens when you cut oxygen supply in the king's palace?
What?
There will be no heir to the throne.
Are you even trying at this point? Never mind. Simply put, the intake of pollutants could result in our body accumulating said pollutant, leading to alterations on genetic expression. To clarify things, the epigenetic changes brought about by pollutants lead specifically to changes on how genes are expressed, whether it may be through activation or suppression, not an alteration of the DNA sequence itself. To put in a simple analogy, while the genome is the hardware, the epigenome is the software and is thus responsive to environmental conditions.
Great threat. This represents lies most prominently under air pollutants, with the presence of persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, which are pollutants that could persist, biomagnify, and bioaccumulate in the ecosystem, effectively integrating itself as a harmful abiotic factor. Other than as an air pollutant, POPs could also harm a population through the contamination of food and water, of which said population intakes, such as from pesticides that are used for crop treatment, seeping into aquifers for irrigation lines.
Such chemical exposures have been shown by numerous studies to lead to adverse changes on genetic expression. People with maternal plasma persistent organic pollutant concentration have been found to be associated with nitrosative stress and DNA methylation alterations, affecting CPG sites related to embryonic cell differentiation and brain size and morphology.
Other air pollution-induced placental changes include alterations to CPG sites that cause disruptions to DNA repair, circadian rhythm, and energy metabolism, adverse effects to telomere length and mitochondrial DNA content leading to accelerated aging have also been associated to air pollution.
Airborne particulate matters are another type of air pollutant that lead to adverse epigenetic changes, of which their exposure specific to different clinical conditions and life stages lead to some variation of effects. In the preconception stage, particulate matters have been found to cause a decline in spermatozoa production, along with abnormal gamete maturation, at least in animal models. Particulate matters have also been associated with issues with pregnancy during the event itself, examples include the weight, fetal growth restrictions, etc., along with both issues for the child, more prominently developmental disorders, and the mother herself, with the increased rise of hypertensive disorders.
In the childhood stage, children heavily exposed to PMs have been found to have hypomethylated immune genes related to T lymphocytes, effectively reducing immune system capabilities. Genes associated with lung function have also been found to be affected. In the adult stage, heavy PM exposure have been linked to adversely affect a wide variety of CPG sites that are annotated to disease genes that are neurological, pulmonary, endocrine, and cardiovascular. The elder lies are also compounded with epigenetic changes, altering inflammation and immunity-related genes alongside accelerated biological aging.
How do humans partake in the intensification of air pollution? Most of the air pollutants come from energy use and production. Air pollutants produced through the burning of fossil fuels is a prominent example of anthropogenic environmental harm of the atmosphere and inevitably the biosphere. Emissions from factories and industries such as sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide cause smog and acid rain. Acid rain can make bodies of water too acidic for marine life to survive and function normally. Sulfurous smog from power plants, factories, and home furnace causes intense concentration of particulate matter in the atmosphere. Photochemical smog coming from large quantities of automobiles, specifically in urban areas, produces a light brown coloration in the air. Smog causes cardiovascular vulnerability to animals by affecting how they breathe and exchange gas. Bioaccumulation happens as air pollutants consume increased concentration as animals become eaten along the food chain. It also leads to organ injury, increased stress, prominent diseases, lower reproduction, and possible death of wildlife. Some of the species may be able to adapt through genetic changes, but not all will be able to survive.
Now hearing all that, we are finally left with the question, are human beings an invasive species? Allow me to add some more questions based on the one asked to give more thought into this answer. Do we harm natural resources in an ecosystem? Do we threaten them through the human use of these resources? Are we capable of bringing extinction to a native species? And most of all, are we one of the reasons why the lives of other species are disrupted by ruining their habitats and forcing them to migrate? Well, yes, it does suck, but hey, harsh truths aren't called harsh for nothing.
Apparently, you don't need to be 19th century British or mid-20th century Germany to be invasive. So what's the big picture? It should have been evident really, with most of the world operating in cycles, that for all the technology and discoveries we've developed, we are all subject to its fundamental rules. Newton's third law of motion, what comes around, goes around.
What comes around goes around. Huh? Oh, come on, that was funny. That was funny.
God, really?
Hey, stop.
We were already at the end of it, and that's not even a good pun. Roll credits.
Whatever you say. Okie dokie boomer. B-O-O-M-E-R.